Okay, so and we are live. Hi everyone, welcome to the Enlightening Tangent podcast. I'm your host Gautam, aka the Seeker of Wisdom. I'm a manifestation coach, and today we have another coach on board today. Hi Rose, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, and thank you for collaborating. I really appreciate your time. So why don't you introduce yourself for the audience who may not be familiar with you?
Sure. So, my name is Rosanna. A lot of people refer to me as Rose because my old account name was Manifest with Rose. Now it's Rosanna Manifests. And I'm a self concept mindset coach. Sometimes I interchange it with quantum leap, so a self concept quantum leap coach, because my main focus is on shifting your self concept fully so that you have a solid foundation through a
Mm,
practical mind body approach so that it's realistic to apply to your day to
right,
day life.
right.
And I'm into receiving things and shifting things quickly, not because I think that we have to be unhappy without it, or that it has to happen quickly. It's more so that
Mhm.
I'm so passionate about seeing people live the life that they want. So I'm like, let's get to it. Let's do this thing. Let's personalize it to you in a way that works best for you so that you can like up level right away. And yeah, my main focus is to help people manifest their desires,
Mhm.
though the physical manifestation to me is secondary to the self concept. So we focus on up leveling your self concept, rekindling your connection with yourself, and from there we then can focus on your desires, so that you are also approaching them from an empowering space rather than a space of fear or hope or desperation and so on.
Right,
And one of the reasons why I started this work is because like I'm so passionate about breaking generational trauma, generational BS, excuse me.
right.
And I love doing that by teaching people to unlearn limiting beliefs and eventually pass it down to their children and know how to like alchemize their pain to, channel it to their greatest power.
Amazing, amazing. I really love everything that you mentioned. And how did this journey begin for you? Like, where was your beginning?
Ooh. So I started, I would say 5 years ago, when I
Okay.
found out about manifesting, and I found it a very interesting way. I've always been like so curious about the mind and how energy works and things like that. So I was
Right,
looking into telepathy,
right, right, right.
and I ended up on a law of attraction channel that was talking about telepathy, and then I went through the channel and I started watching manifestation content, and that led me from one coach to the other. And a friend of mine, I was telling her about this YouTube channel, and she told me, "Oh, you should check out The Secret." And I did check
Mm.
out The Secret, and then I started like applying it. And then, from there, got me to Law of Assumption. And then now I don't just like call it Law of Assumption or Law of Attraction, I just call it manifestation. And
Mm.
yeah, that's how it started for me. And I was also first heavily focused on self love because I've always like struggled with my body image. And so finding, the self love work and then finding the manifestation work kind of was like prepping me to get to where I am today.
Right, right, right. Amazing, amazing. So, like, so you, in your eyes, like, you're not exactly like teaching people how to use the law of assumption or the law of attraction per se, but it's more of just manifestation in general. Is that right?
Yeah, it's more so like being the thing, whether or
Mm,
not you
mm,
call it
mm,
attraction
mm.
or assumption.
Right, because at the end of the day, like, basically, it is the same thing, but just like mentioned in a different way. Then,
Pretty much, yeah. And I said
right?
this before in one of my posts where I said like ask, believe, receive is the same as persist in an assumption till it hardens into fact. So just like
Exactly.
it's like
Yeah.
tomato, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, 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 yeah. So like so what's your process like when you are now like manifesting things in a very like quickly and easily? I think folks will really be interested in that. Like, so what's exactly like your process? Like, how do you like like bring in your manifestations into your life, like with ease? Like, what's your process?
So I break it down into 5 steps in my program.
Okay.
And the way we start is like find clarity, which is find out what you really want,
Mm-hmm.
and also figuring out why you are where you are. Because a lot of the times when we are staying in a specific place, it's because there's some sort of comfort zone or something that in that reality that we don't want to leave, or
Mm-hmm.
there's some form of payoff, an identity that we're so attached to. So when we figure out what it is and why, then we're able to figure out, okay, what's the next step. And after clarity, we focus on releasing old wounds and stories. So whatever has a hold on you, because see
Mm.
a lot in the community. It gets to the point where it's just like healing, 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 sitting with it, and that's great. But then we want to like take it to the next level.
Right.
So I focus a lot on how to integrate these different parts of you. Like I see it as like a family within you, parts of you, the part of you that believes, part of you that doesn't believe, and it's like getting these all these parts of you to kind of communicate so you can integrate them, and focusing on making peace with the past, forgiveness, so that it no longer has this kind of power over you. And then
Right.
from there, the next step, the third step, is to connect and merge with your highest self. I love, love, love meditation. I love getting people to connect with source or whatever that they prefer.
Mm.
And that way they can get like direct answers and direction. And also they can see what their ideal version looks like and how they're living their life, so that they can start to see the universe, love, relationships, whatever, from that perception through those pair of eyes, and start like actually acting on it. So I don't just like teach people to, okay, so you want to manifest, let's say money, imagine the money in your bank account. I see it as, you got the money, what are your new money goals from this version of you? You know? So if you
Right.
want to, let's say, build a page, you want 2K, you got the 2K. Now what are you up leveling to? Okay, 5K. So it's that kind of energy. So when you approach it that way, you're more likely to move faster. And then the part that's after that, I call it like accessing the quantum field, which is like literally feeling like the shifts in your body,
Mhm.
practicing feeling like your body is acting like the new version. So the version of you who is always anxious, you're kind of feeling like your muscles are constricted, and that
Mm.
you're almost like, it's almost like your breathing is shallow. The version
Mm.
of you who is has complete inner peace, they feel differently in their body. They walk differently. They speak differently. They
Right.
act differently. So it's like connecting and merging with your higher self is up leveling the overall self, the self concept, and then accessing your desires from there, where you kind of like get into, I love doing the meditations of like seeing infinite potentialities and exploring different realities, and then choosing the one that you enjoy, so that we're doing the process from a place of like, ooh, let me check this out and try this and try that, versus I have to make this happen. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. It does. I feel
Yeah.
like it's really like because I explored NLP on this as well, and I think in one thing that they kind of mentioned in NLP exercises was like, you can look to your left and look to your right. Like, it's if the left is your past and the right is your future, and then you kind of start associating with that. It's almost it really kind of reminded me of like that, like when you said like accessing different versions of yourself, and I really found it interesting where you were like, okay, if you want $2,000, like you kind of go beyond the desire, and you kind of like set your clients in that mindset where they are well beyond their desires. And I think that's great, where like because then they are really thinking from the state of that person who's not trying to achieve it, but rather they are thinking from the state that they already have it. And at that point they
Yeah.
will have different goals. So I feel like, that's actually great. Like, I think I'm glad like your process involves that. I think that's really like I was just like smiling. I know you can't see me right now, but I was just like, yes, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love also like the last step, the fifth one, because it's about embodying self-love. And the
Right.
reason why like this phase is like the longest is because we want long-term success. So I kind of like break it down into pillars, and like, for example, one of the pillars is integrity. And
Mm.
integrity is really crucial when you are stepping into your ideal life, because if you're not being honest with yourself about what you want, if you're not able to set a boundary and show up despite what others think, then how are you claiming that you are that version if you're continuing to act and feel and think like the opposite? So part of self-love for me is also integrity. And there's also another pillar to it, which is self-acceptance, being able to accept all parts of you, change the ones that you want to change, but rather from a place of, it's from a place of love rather than fear.
Right.
And self-respect, the next one, is my favorite, because it kind of gets you to a place where you completely change your self-talk. For me,
Mm.
the way that I applied it first was like, I don't accept when anyone body shames me, so why would I say that to myself? I wouldn't. I set a boundary with myself that
Mm.
no matter what I see in the mirror, I am not allowed to disrespect my body, to treat myself poorly. If things go wrong in my life, I'm not going to call myself stupid or anything like that. So
Mm,
the self-respect aspect also allows you to like attract people who are respectful as well, or who respect your boundaries, your time, your energy, your choices.
mm,
And the other pillar is self efficacy, which is your beliefs in yourself and your capabilities. And that obviously goes hand in hand with like your belief in manifestation and your ability to manifest. So when we change all these sides and parts of you, you're actually able to maintain the manifestation because you're now being. It's like it's gonna be the thing, the state that you fall back to. You know, we go through so many different states all day, but the
right.
one that you fall back to is your dwelling place that you manifest autopilot from. And that's like the purpose of like the 5 step process.
I really love how you have, developed and this process and really dissected it into different pillars. And I really think it's great. And I'm sure that it took you a while to come up with this, because as I'm hearing this, and I'm just like, wow, this is so detailed, and clearly you have put a lot of thought into this. Like, so was this the process that you developed over a period of time? Like, did you use it on yourself? Like, how did this come about?
I mean, I was thinking when I was preparing the program, I was like, what
Right.
is, what did I want when I first started this journey? What was missing?
Mm,
And when I was thinking about the process, I'm like, yeah, clarity, self love, and empowerment, and all that. But I really thought about it, and I was like, the thing that bothered me the most at the beginning of the journey is when we're told, just be happy, just love yourself, just focus on the state. And the question that always came up to me is how.
mm,
So with every process, I asked the question of how, until I came up with different hows. I applied it to myself, and then I realized that what I love about the process is that it works differently for everyone. It's like you come up with your own signature manifestation process in the end. Like the 5 step process leads you to your own signature process that works for your lifestyle, your way of thinking, your favorite manifestation practices or spiritual practices. So I would say it was like a mix of things I've been through, things that I've read in so many books, and just like combined it all together in a way that worked for me and in my own life.
right,
And then I started like before starting my program, I was doing one-on-one coaching through emails,
right.
and then I would take like parts of it and start to like personalize it to each client, and then I would see like what would work best for each person. And I
Mm,
just took like the overall success that came out of it and eventually put it into the program. But it did definitely take thought and time. Like I just came up with the process like at the beginning of 2022, and that was in the
right.
works for like around a few, 3 months of like working on it.
Mm,
So
mm, mm.
from the end of 2021 till early 2022.
Right. Because I asked you that because I don't think like many people kind of realize like the effort that goes into putting together these types of programs. Like especially with these types of programs where it's like you're sitting down and really thinking about all these things, you're dissecting these things. And I don't think a lot of people would really put too much thought into, okay, where is this like process coming for them. And I think
Mm-hmm.
like just recognizing that makes them appreciate the process that much more, because you have spent the time and effort to develop this over a period of time. And it's really commendable, because I know how long it takes and the effort that kind of goes into all this, because I'm on like kind of on the same boat as you are. And like I so that's why I really asked you, because I really wanted to like show folks like, okay, this is what kind of goes into it. It's not something that folks just right out of like thin air, basically, right? So yeah. Because I no, because seriously, like, because I don't think that really people do see it. And I think earlier you mentioned something, a couple of things actually, that really kind of stood out to me. And you were right about how you shouldn't like disrespect yourself. And I always tell people like there is no there's no like governing body over like how we should talk to ourselves. Like there's no one kind of regulating that. And
Yeah.
that is why we should really like kind of monitor those thoughts and ensure that we are talking very nicely to ourselves. And the reason why we need to do that is because nobody listens to our inner dialogues except ourselves. So for the most part of our lives, it has gone like unregulated. And then like through this journey, like, we then see like, oh my god, this is how I've been talking to myself all this while. And then we have to start to change that. And another thing that kind of stood out to me when you were talking was self efficacy. I really thought that was interesting because um it's so hard. I feel like, initially when we begin, for us to go beyond our potential or our perceived potential, right? Because we think,
Yeah.
okay, this is what I can do. This is my so-called limit. This is what I can amount to. And like, how do you even like start with that? Like, how do you get folks to say like, hey, I can do so much more? Yes, there's the vision, that is where you want to go and whatnot. But like, there's always this like, perceived ceiling that these people have, right? So how do you like kind of break past that?
So I think for me, what I noticed, it's about asking the right question. So
Right.
it's not just like, oh, what do you want out of a relationship? It's more
Mm,
so like, because most people will say, oh, I want healthy communication. I want someone who's there for me. But then I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean to you?
mm,
Because what it means to you for someone to show up for you is not the same as the level of support that I want from someone.
I agree.
So getting them to think that way gets them to kind of like expand their vision a little. And I kind of encourage people to script if they would like to. But the reason I encourage it is because it allows you to go deep with each topic. And I tell them, break down every single aspect of that desire in your script.
Mm,
So one script about communication, another script about affection. Let's say with jobs, one script about the workplace, another script about your relationship with your colleagues, things like that. That
mm,
gets you to kind of like expand your vision and start to see that, oh, this is what I actually want. And
right.
especially when you surround yourself with people who have what you want, you kind of see, oh, that's how they feel about the job industry. That's how they look at the world and at their look and their finances and themselves. So just encouraging them as much as possible to take everything as a teaching lesson, even the things that they're drawn to, the types of characters in movies that they're usually drawn to, the movies that they find themselves resonating with. It
Right.
tells you a lot about your belief system and where you think how much you are able to receive.
Right. So it's really like fleshing their desires out and bringing clarity to that, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
Awesome, awesome. So how does that like help them like push through their ceiling? Like that's the connection that I'm unable to make. Could you like enlighten me on that? Because I was thinking, okay, yes, like, we shine the light on, okay, this is what they really really want. But then like, how do you then get them to like really believe that, okay, I am able to achieve that, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So one thing that I like to do is let people see that how things are already working, in the sense that for me, like last year, I was working on like improving my friendships, and one of the things that I was focusing on is safety in friendships. And while I
Mm,
was meditating, I kind of like got a download that you're already safe. You already have people who are caring. You already have people who hold the space for you when you need it. So I tell my clients, like, write down the times where you notice that you are safe to be
mm,
yourself. Look at the times in your life where you see that, oh, I actually did this thing, so I can trust myself. So the more you bring your focus towards what's already working in your current 3D past experiences, along with like building that vision, you're kind of
right.
like able to break that ceiling. And even like reading success stories can be really helpful to make you see
Mm.
what's possible for you. It's just that sometimes people see the success story as this works for them, but not for me.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think
So that
yeah, we have seen that in the community quite often. Yeah.
so that's why I tell people to like look into their own life, like where have they
Mm,
had success before and where were they at that time to get that success. And that just kind of lights a bulb a little bit that, oh, that even though I wasn't like in the best place, but I thought this and
mm.
that about myself.
Right,
So that
right,
kind of
right.
changes or rather adds to the new story in a way that allows you to believe in it more. And because you already
Mm.
see that, oh, I have evidence that I've done it before and that it is present around me now.
Right, right, right. So like noticing all the like abundance in your life and all the things that are working for you in regards to your desires, like, all the similar things, and then like drawing from those experiences, like if I can achieve it based on the state that I was in, surely I can do much more being in the ideal state of mind. Something like that, right?
Yeah, and also doing things that give you that feeling. Like
Mm,
if you want abundance, you can just even like for a moment, when you look at your wardrobe and see so many clothes and just ponder on
mm,
in the moment about how much abundance you have in there and just
mm.
dressing in a way that makes you feel expensive, that can get you
Right,
closer to the feeling. So it's like, what is one thing you can do today to get one step closer? Because like
right.
by the end of the week, you would have got 7 steps closer.
Right. But you're doing the actions not to get closer to your desires, but rather to achieve that state of mind, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, yeah, because I feel like, yeah, because some folks might take it like, oh, are you saying that we need to act on it and things like that, you know? And I just wanted to clarify, not for my sake, I understand it, but just for the audience. uh,
It's more like giving yourself everything that you need. That's
right,
how, because like a lot of times when I say choose yourself, people don't get what it means. So that's why I'm saying it that way. Because
right,
like
right,
this
right.
is what it means to give it to yourself and not need it from anyone else.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense there, because I feel like this process that you just like kind of like just like rolled out, I feel like it makes a lot of sense, and it's also very practical. Like you can actually use it on a day-to-day basis and kind of track your progress as well, because you
Yeah.
are definitely experiencing the shift in mindset, as well as you're noticing all the things that are working out in your life in terms of noticing all the love that you're already getting from others and things like that. You're already noticing all these things, and it kind of like builds up a favorable momentum, and then like you can just carry on with it, and then like like we say, like whatever you focus on, you attract more of. So I feel like that's the way I would like perceive it. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. Yes.
Right. Yeah, earlier you mentioned something that I really wanted to expand on, was like you getting downloads whenever you are, meditating. So
Right.
like how was that? Like where did that begin for you?
So I didn't really understand when people say like, "Oh, you have all the answers within you." I'm like, "How?"
Mm.
So when I'm when I'm meditating, it's kind of like shutting down the noise around you and the noise in your
Mm.
mind, and just
Mm.
like listening to the voice from your subconscious or universe source, whatever you believe in. So it's
Mhm.
like you're opening yourself up to now really listening to the answers that either you already know, or it's kind of like, to me, if like you're so connected with your spiritual beliefs or your higher self or God, whatever, you feel like you get messages or an image that gives you some form of clarity. And how did it start with me? I would say just me like practicing. I was like, let me start meditating daily. I want to see
Mm.
what is the hype about this.
Right.
And what started for me to react less, to be a lot less of a reactive person, because I've always been someone who's very reactive.
Right.
And I realized as I meditate, I'm less reactive. And then I was like, okay, so when I'm in a state where I'm communicating with my subconscious, what if I can ask it a question like, what do I need to let go of to become this? And then as I do that, either I would get an answer in the moment, or I would sense something, I would get like an image. Like
Mm.
that's my experience with meditation. And then I started like trying out guided meditations, and I would see that there were meditations about becoming like your highest self. And I remember Roxy Cox also recommended one on her podcast, and I checked that out, and it was very interesting because it's like allowing yourself to be supported and guided by whatever you believe
Mhm.
in a way that like you can access answers and then let them take care of the rest for you. You do the inner work. So they do the work of like bringing it to you. And when I saw it from that perspective, I was like, okay, so that's what surrender is. I'm letting whatever I believe in, God, higher self, universe, bring it to
Mhm.
me. And in the meantime, I'm just like focusing on getting the answers that I desire, feeling the feelings, and making my life filled with all the abundance that I want to experience, the love, the joy, whatnot. And yeah, I kind of went on a tangent, but
No,
that's
it's okay. Yeah.
yeah. So that's pretty much if that sums it up. That's how like I started with like meditations, and yeah, it's a practice that I recommend for everyone. It's like a muscle that you build.
Right, absolutely. So is it something that you these days do you like do more of like guided meditations, or do you just like sit down and like watch your breath, or like how does that work for you? Because
So
different people do it different ways. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah.
I mean, I go with the flow. So if I feel like
Right.
I want something, just to be in a silent space and just take some deep breaths, I'll do that. Sometimes I'll do something guided or a specific topic, maybe. So it really depends on like what I'm feeling that day.
Okay, okay, okay. Got it, got it, got it. Awesome. Yeah, because I really feel that these yeah, meditation is definitely beneficial. And I do have like, moments of like inspiration or downloads as well. As you say, sometimes in the form of like a certain verse or certain quote that just comes to me out of nowhere. And then, like I'll be made, like inspired to make a post on it. And then, yeah, like people really, really resonate with it. And I think like there was one time, I don't know about your experience, and I would love to know. A lot of people ask me sometimes like, okay, where do you get your content from? Like, or sometimes like, how do you just like, like do content, like dish out content like almost on like a regular basis, especially like not now, but like like a year ago, like I used to post a lot. And it was like I used to say like, well, like I just get it, like I just get the download, so to speak, right? Like it's almost like it's channeled. So was it the experience
Yeah.
for you as well?
Yeah, definitely. Like my content is pretty much from three places. One, my personal experience, two, the downloads from meditation.
Right.
Three, most of the time I see like a common theme with clients that week, and that
Mm.
just like makes it make more sense.
Right, right, right. Actually, yeah, like I agree with the last one, especially like I've noticed that too. Because when one client says something, somehow it's a pattern all of a sudden. At least like three or four people will say it, and I'm like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, and sometimes even I go through something and I like move past it. 3 days later, I see like a client going through something similar, and I'm like, okay, so I just went through this, and this is what I did.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've definitely had that kind of experience as well, where it's almost like you just went through that experience just so that you could be prepared for what's about to come in a way.
Literally, yeah. Even like last week, I was gonna host like a boot camp. I did host a boot camp about like getting unstuck. It's like I felt stuck, and then I came up with this boot camp idea. I did it, and just like 2 days before the boot camp, I kind of felt stuck again, and I applied the work again. So
Right,
it's like
right, right.
integrating it twice or three times before I started, and I was like, damn.
Yeah, it's crazy how that happens, and I'm glad to know like I'm not the only one who kind of goes through that type of
You're
stuff.
not.
Yeah. So yeah, like earlier, I think when you reached out, like we wanted to talk about like how like this space was like more dominated by like folks from like a certain part of the world and whatnot. Do you want to like still talk about that? Yeah, I just wanted to just confirm with you. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, I noticed like what I mean, I'm still a client. I love being a client because it's good to have someone to, who's supportive and who sees like your blind spots. But
Right.
as a previous client back then,
Mm-hmm.
what I kind of struggled with the most is for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Arab and I'm Muslim, so I'm pretty much ethnic. And the thing I struggled with the most is trying to explain my upbringing to
Mm.
coaches, and it felt invalidating to hear that it doesn't matter your background, or like circumstances don't matter. And while circumstances don't matter in the sense that they don't dictate what happens next,
Mm-hmm.
they do matter in the sense of how of the aftermath of like the circumstances, the impact that it has on you. Because
Mm.
if you grow up in a specific society with specific beliefs, it
Mm.
might be harder for you to even grasp these concepts. Like you can understand them intellectually, but not
Mm.
understand them feel them at the core. And this whole it doesn't matter where you come from, it's kind of invalidating, and it's not actually allowing the client to look within and figure out what beliefs they developed as a result of that experience to actually work on it, if that makes sense.
It
I don't
does.
know
It
what
does. It
your
does.
experience with it.
Yeah, so like in other words, what you're saying is like when you like tell a client like, okay, circumstances don't matter, it not only invalidates them, but also if they're coming from a certain background, you also as a coach like severely lack the context. for a lot of things,
Yes. Yeah.
and therefore you might not be able to diagnose the issue and kind of get to the root cause of it. And that's and this might be going on a tangent, but real quick, like how how much do you think it does, like, context or anything matters? Because like with the way Neville kind of describes it, it's almost like like you don't really need to know the context or the root cause of the problem. Like how much do
Hmm.
you agree with that? Like, because I kind of go back and forth on it. Like as much as I ask my
Yeah.
clients questions and everything, I'm like, okay, how much of it is actually relevant, like, to for them to, believe that their desires are done. Like I kind of go back and forth on it. So I really wanted to get your views on it. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I also go like kind of back and forth with it, and I'm actually writing a post about it. So I think that you don't always have to know the root, and it's kind of like
Mm,
impossible to remember every little thing that ever happened to you.
mm,
But the answers that you get now, like when you ask, okay, when was the first time I felt that way, or since when I've been holding on to this, who taught me this? This kind of
mm,
gives you like a background perspective, so that you know, like, okay, what memory is having kind of a hold on me.
mm,
Mm, but at the same time, it's like, because again, you're not gonna know every time the root cause, and you can still get into a state no matter what. But even that depends very much on the client, because I know some people
mm,
are very much attached and identifying with, something that happened with them before, even if like it's a week ago. And that's why,
mm,
people repeat the old story. It's not that they always don't want to do the work, that can be the case. But there's also the aspect of they've made it so much their identity that it's kind of difficult to detach from
mm,
it. So actually trying to force themselves into a state is doing like the opposite. It's actually causing like more resistance, making them more anxious, and
mm.
so I feel like it's something that's very individual for sure.
Right, right, right. Yeah, that makes sense because like for me as well, I've noticed like with different clients it's like very different approaches, and sometimes we need to like really work on the root cause and everything, but with others it's more like okay, they can just accept the new story without kind of working on anything because they are so willing to just like kind of let go of the old stories, almost like shedding their old skin away and like kind of just embodying the new. They're able to do it much more, and like I think like you hit the nail with that. It's about how much they are associating themselves with a certain identity. I think
Yeah.
that's just it. Yeah, yeah. As for my experience with this thing, definitely, one of the reasons I think like a lot of like when like Indian clients or clients with like Indian origins, like just abroad as well, when they would sign up with me, I think one of the main reasons is definitely because of like they are like, okay, well, you do understand like okay the culture and
Hmm.
what kind of goes along with it. And I've definitely noticed that because for me, when I had a business coach at one point too, and it wasn't like I didn't really wasn't concerned about like my ethnicity or whether or not the coach would be able to understand it per se. To me, like that wasn't really that much of an issue. But it was just more like for me it was like okay, are they able to figure out like what my kind of blocks are and anything. And mine didn't really have anything to do with like ethnicity, or even when I did have any like some sort of an issue, I was like okay, well, I can like still handle it on my own, because I think like as time went by, like I kind of like spoke over it, and there were always like people to kind of guide you over, so it wasn't like a big deal for me. But I didn't like really appreciate it enough like until I became a coach,
Hmm.
when I realized like okay, like people do look at your ethnicity, and it does matter. It does matter to
Yeah.
associate, and like and really kind of bond with the coach. To an extent it does matter, and that's when like I realized like oh okay, like this is actually a thing. Because before that I wasn't really appreciative of it. But I think like after like I realized that like it was like it was definitely an eye opener, and it made much more sense like okay, why certain clients would come to you. And I mean, I still coach like folks from all walks of life still. But when a certain group of like I think like clients with like Indian origin come to me, they come because of that specific
Yeah.
reason. Yeah, yeah. Is that the same with you?
Yeah, and I've also noticed that pardon me, but the people with the biggest platform are people who aren't ethnic. I mean, in this industry, in the coaching
Right,
industry, like
right.
I can only count on my fingers two people who are ethnic, and then the rest. come from a different background, a more privileged one, and that's fine. It's more so
Hmm.
that the voices are more so going this direction. And I don't know about
Mm.
your experience, but I know that a lot of people from our culture, they kind of like look up to the Western world and feel small about themselves, that
Mhm.
we can even tend to like abandon cultural aspects or feel ashamed of them to try to fit into the mainstream idea of
Mm.
beauty, being open minded, the way of thinking.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if you resonate with this or if that makes sense to you, but I've
Right.
even noticed like there are teachings, like yoga, folks are
Right.
like stripped from their roots and now they're used to in a way that is more pardon me, sensual. Nothing
Right.
wrong with that until
Right.
it's like generally with you and yourself, you're welcome to do whatever you want, but it's more so when it's promoted in a way that
Absolutely. Yeah.
strips something from its own roots.
Right.
It's kind of like it's a for it's not exactly right. The nicest way to say it.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think like with things like that, it's more like very commercialized and with yoga and stuff like that. And I think like there has been a lot of things that has been taken out of context and used. And one thing that I always tell people is like when you use it that way, you're not getting the full benefit of it too. When you're not
Mhm.
like kind of using it in the way that it was intended, or when you're not, when you're just taking a, just a bit of something and then trying to use it, you're not going to get the fully intended effect as well. You might get the effects, like small effects here and there, but it's not going to be something full. So
Yeah.
that's yeah, that's one thing there. And like generally, so my experience with this is definitely like I think that there was one point where folks did feel like they were kind of inferior to the west in general. And I think like growing up, even I felt it. With I had like
Mhm.
insecurities with my skin color and whatnot as well, because at one point I was an immigrant too. So I definitely have felt it before. In this space, like that's something that I was like really thinking about when we kind of spoke about it off air as well, was you know that this space is a very saturated space. And I do like find like folks from other ethnic groups for sure, but I think it's more about which one is more popular that way. Because I feel like
Mhm.
I think you would agree more than anyone, that like there are coaches like popping up every like once every 2 minutes or something. And I think you and I have seen, and this isn't to look down on anyone or something. Like we have seen, I'm pretty sure like you have been in the space for what, like 2 or more years at this point, right?
Yeah. Two and a
Yeah,
half
and,
years.
and yeah, yeah. So you would have seen like folks come and go in that time, right? And yeah, and like that's the thing. Like for me, I do think that folks from other ethnic groups do kind of start something. But I think like there's I this is one of those things that I think, because it started from the west, like the whole idea of like manifestation and whatnot. I
Mhm.
think like they kind of like like they were just kind of like holding on to the kind of like the mantle for a while. But it's definitely like kind of like it's not the case anymore, because I feel like the new age new thought age movement, like that kind of started
Mhm.
like even before like Neville. I think it's like kind of having a resurgence right now, and it's definitely kind of spreading all over the world for sure.
Yeah.
I think due to like folks like you break stereotypes, right? Like you come out there, and because you are part of an ethnic group, and when you talk about this, like people who are from similar walks of life to yourself, for example, they do see you and they do get inspired, for example. So I do feel
Yes.
like it definitely was like dominant in that way that you mentioned for sure. But I feel like there's such a resurgence in this like last year or two, even like things are definitely changing, especially after the
Yeah.
pandemic. I feel like when people had more time to be more introspective, I think that's when the shift started to
Mhm.
to, to really happen. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely the online world has like developed a lot in the past 2 3 years since the pandemic.
Right.
And I think everyone has been reflecting on world issues have come up a lot in the past 3 years. And I'm actually going to ask you this: what do you think is the line between ignorance to world issues versus like not wanting to feed into a specific assumption, but at the same time wanting to help certain movements.
Yeah, that's actually a great question because I am very much into politics. That's something that folks
Hmm.
really don't know about me, is that I'm very much into politics. and and this is something that I kind of have to balance as well, because I it's like, for me, like watching something political, or any kind of like political news or the ongoings, is like watching a football match, right? Like which team is doing this, and it's so funny sometimes to watch that. But for me, like the way I kind of like the law draw the line is, if it gets like too emotional for me, if it really boils my blood, for lack of a better word, that's when I'm like, okay, time out, you need to like take a step back, right? Like you can know
Yeah,
things and kind of understand it, like just for the intellectual thinking for it, and really kind of like to learn and grow your mind, for sure. But definitely don't get emotionally involved in it, right?
yeah, yeah.
And that's kind of like my stance on it. And I know that, okay, at the end of the day, sometimes, like, there will be pieces of news that comes with, like, very bleak kind of like, potential outcomes, and they kind of insinuate that, and I tell myself, okay, that even if that is the case for the whole wide world, that's irrelevant to me, because I
Yeah.
know better. And I kind of always think about what Neville did at that point. Like, he was
Hmm.
probably, he grew up at a time when, the world was, pretty
Yeah.
much in like a chaotic state. And I remember there was one point, this was like pre-World War II, when, like, he was like stuck in a boat of sorts, and like, I think like the Germans were bombing the area that he was in, and
Hmm.
whatnot. And then he had to come back home, right? Like, his folks were like, okay, is he even alive and whatnot? But when Neville came from that kind of like environment, he still, when he was drafted to World War II, like he still said, like, I'm not going to be a part of it, and he got out. So like that to me is like my stance on it is like, okay, sure, the chaos might be happening and whatnot, but it's not, I'm always like protected, there's always going to be a sphere around me that's going to
Yeah.
keep me and my loved ones safe, and I'm not going
Hmm.
to get involved too much in it, as much as possible. That's kind of like my stance on it, because there'll always be something going on, and that's one thing that I've
Yeah.
noticed is, like, there'll always be some sort of a conflict or a shortage or this or that. And like there's always something going on, and if you let yourself get sucked into it, you're going to lose yourself in it.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
important to kind of like take a step back, and that's why I kind of draw my line. I see it, but like I do my best not to get affected by it. And if I
Hmm.
do get kind of sucked into it, which does happen from time to time, I'm like, okay, time out, take a step back, go and
Yeah.
do something else. And that's how I kind of manage it. Yeah.
I definitely feel you on that. I mean, I wouldn't say I can ignore it because, I mean,
Mm,
if I know a lot of people say just ignore because it will manifest more, but like
right.
if the people who ignored it didn't make it go away, it's still there.
Right.
And
Right.
it's more of that, I know for me personally that I can fall into depression if I get too much into it, and it's a
Mm,
privilege I know as well to be able to like take time off socials and not look at things.
mm,
So there can be definitely a sense of guilt there, but at the same time, I know that I can help people without I can help as much as I possibly can
mm,
without it costing my mental health so much, because I have a platform and I know that there are certain people who maybe look up to me because I've wearing a headscarf or what, or simply because I'm a figure, a public figure in a sense.
right.
Not that public, but you know what I mean. Not like a celebrity public, but um. So I know that some people look up to me, and I can also like if I raise awareness, more people will see that, and I love doing that. But then if I do it, I probably do it like once or twice about that topic while it's happening, and then I need to kind of like step back so that it doesn't like really get to me. Like I remembered in 2020 when there were the protests, I was definitely not in a good mental place for two
Right.
weeks
Right.
after
Right.
getting too much into it.
Right.
And at the same time, I saw that when we were all raising awareness, we all kind of like united in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
there's this negative perception that if you get into it, that it will cause more division, but it can actually cause more union. And also, it depends on how you approach things. Like with any movement, if you're approaching it from, hatred and anger and this person and that,
Mm.
it can definitely bring up more anger, and it doesn't leave room for the other side to hear you, versus
Right.
when we, when we go to like movements where we educate
Mm.
and listen. That's more likely when people will listen from the other side. So um in a nutshell, kind of want to get on a tangent, it's it's like a balance between how much you get into it, and how and the way you get into it, like I was just saying.
Right.
First, and also about between the balancing your mental health and all that. And at the end of the day, people always have something to disagree with. If you like post SP content, some people will disagree, some people will agree. If you post money content, some people agree will disagree. So it doesn't matter what anyone thinks. It's just about, do what feels right at the end of the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because like funny enough, like you mentioned the protests earlier on, because that was my catalyst to actually put out a video out there. Because prior to that, I've never my first ever video was on the George Floyd protest. I've archived
Yeah.
it since, but that was my first ever video that I put on IGTV, because
Wow.
I was so hesitant to put things on YouTube at that point, but because I was still in the military, so I could get into trouble if something goes viral or if I say something and
Oh.
whatnot. Yeah, so that was like my first ever video that I made, and that was like my kind of entry into video making even. So it really kind of resonated with me when you mentioned that. And one thing that I've known is that when you speak your truth when it comes to these types of things, you attract your tribe as well. Because I've
Yes.
yeah, and when I did express my views on the Seeker page itself, I've had people like sign up coaching with me as well based on that. And I didn't promote my services, nor did I speak anything related to manifestation or any of that. But just because I was so in my truth, I was able to attract my tribe. And these are folks who have
Hmm.
stayed with me in my life ever since, well
Yeah.
beyond like either coaching or even if it's just friends, for example. Like these are people who have stayed with me since. And I know that when you like put things out there, when you just speak your truth, not like what you say, not to oppose that person just for the sake of it or whatsoever, but to really speak the truth, and to help the person understand, also for you to understand the other party. When you come at it from that perspective, you attract your tribe, and something beautiful comes out of it for sure. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I was also like very hesitant when I was like when I started
Hmm.
wearing that scarf. I was hesitant with like putting myself out there on my page,
Mm.
because I know a lot of people who followed me were always surprised that I'm ethnic, because I'm kind of white, like white passing with from my skin color and
Right, right.
my accent and all that. So when I thought about it, I was like, you know what? If I have to start from zero,
Hmm.
if that means that I will have kind, inclusive, respectful people,
Hmm.
then so be it. So I did that. I would say I only got maybe three comments that were not kind about it. The rest
Mm.
either unfollowed or stayed. But there are a lot of people who stayed. There were a lot of people who were respectful of it. And it just shows you that, the world is getting better in a lot of ways. And it allows the people who don't align with you to walk away, which is great. Because sometimes this walking away is like bringing in the actual intention that you said at the beginning.
Absolutely, yeah. And when someone walks away, like rarely do I feel bad these days, because what it does is that it makes way for something better to come in. Like the universe
Hmm.
rarely loves any void; it always fills it up with something. And when like a certain group of people leave, be it in your personal life or be it in social media and whatnot, like my belief has always been that it always gets filled up with something way better. So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Even people who manifest like friendships, relationships, they
Mhm.
always see that sometimes it goes like the opposite way. Not always, but sometimes it goes the opposite way before it like manifests.
Mhm.
And that's just like the goodbye old version. That's like the old finishing up in a way. So going back to manifestation, that's kind of how it goes sometimes. I mean, of course, not every time. Sometimes it can be smooth and easy,
Right,
but
right,
it
right.
depends on the story, of course.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think what you and I really respect you for, like even like before, like, I think when we even first started following, was like how like you handle like potential haters, and or just like the community and things like that, right? I think that was like some of our earlier conversations probably. And and I think like I wanted to ask, like, okay, how do you like develop like kind of like this thick skin? Because some people, it really surprises me sometimes, like, because I think for you and I, it's very common, like we can just like just like flick them off like flies sometimes. But
Yeah.
for others, it's like it's a big thing, like if they get one remark or one thing, it really like they take it to heart. So what would be your advice on how to deal with like such kind of comments or anything that kind of affects them? Like, how do you develop a thick skin? Yeah.
Oh. So, I mean, I just got a hate comment the other day, which is interesting because I don't get them daily, but I
Right,
got one
right,
yesterday that was like very angry about my post that said like a lot of women struggle with manifesting love because of the patriarchal society we grew up in. And she didn't even read the caption. She just assumed that I was man hating when in the caption I talked
right.
about I'm against man hating. But anyway, yeah, she left a comment and then she proceeded to message me, and I have no problem with people disagreeing. I have a
Mm,
problem with name calling and disrespecting. This is
mm,
where I draw the line.
mm.
So
Right.
for me, I don't make it mean anything about me. So someone name calling me, and I don't know, the other person the other day called me like toxic and tyranny and whatever the hell. Um,
Right.
I honestly thought it was funny. Like I laughed about it that a complete stranger that I've never met before, that we never
Right.
spoke, is so angry that I'm talking about empowering us and the effects of the society we grow up in.
Mm,
uh, and I know my intention. I know what I'm putting out there. I know who I am as a person. That I don't care what anyone else says. They can define me one way, but I'm gonna still
mm.
choose to define myself the other way. Like that's persistence in a sense.
Right.
And
Right.
like I see it as like, why does it matter? Like, because what I see with many people, it's like you can get like 10 lovely comments and then one comment that like makes or breaks their day, basically. One
Mm,
comment that like make triggers them so much. And
mm,
I think this is because like we've been kind of taught to like that we have to be loved by everyone, that you have to be validated. And I'm in a place where I'm okay with like not being loved by everyone. I like a small circle of people.
mm,
uh I don't need to be loved by everyone. I don't need everyone to agree with me. I think about my intention before posting, whether or not anyone disagrees with me. I'm like, I want to post this thing because I know it's going to help the people who are ready to hear it, and because it's my truth. So
mm,
people hating and disagreeing is a reflection of something that I'm triggering inside of them, and how I feel about their comment is a reflection of something within me.
mm,
And of course, if I always get hate about something specific, it's also reflecting something in me. So I always take it as, what can I learn from this?
mm.
And I also like laugh it off every time that a stranger got so angry that they felt the need to comment and message me. Like, you know how funny that is? Like, you're the one who's
Right.
gonna go to sleep laughing, they're gonna go to sleep angry, you know? So
Right.
I just find it funny. And at the end of the day, like, they don't pay for my bills, I don't pay for theirs. So who cares?
No, that's a great way to put it. And the reason why I asked was, because I think like that kind of like translates into not sometimes reacting to the 3D as well. Like our,
Yeah,
like if we are not reacting to these types of things, chances are, we are not reacting to the 3D as well. So, that's why I wanted to bring that up, because, it's really that same kind of energy that we are kind of
yeah,
bringing everywhere. And I think when I see the 3D, like, that's like what you said, like, you just laugh it off, you just, as much as you can, like, don't take things too seriously, don't take it too hard. And like really go within and like change the narrative that you're telling yourself, and really focusing
yeah.
on that. And that's the kind of energy I wanted to bring as well. So I'm glad you mentioned that whole laughing off part, because I think that's just it, really. Because I think at one point, like, I think every comment, we would be so eager to respond, or we would really, like, if it's good, we really become very happy about it, and if it's
Mm-hmm.
not favorable, we really get affected by it. I mean, I was in a very similar kind of position as you, when, like, not too long ago, I think this was last week, when one of the, like my followers who used to like communicate with me and whatnot, like she commented like, like my, because she was going through a lot, and like I had to come out and talk about it, because like people were messaging me about this. But essentially the gist was like, she just commented like manifestation is a scam or something, and like it doesn't work and whatnot. And then like she kind of threw a tantrum on my video, and like, people were like, no, it does, and like, I hope you find it and whatnot. But like I wasn't even like, like attempted to like, cover up that whole thing. I didn't even want to delete that comment. I'm like, no, just let it be there. Let folks
Yeah.
see, you know, like I'm like, and funny enough, like, this is a part that I haven't shared, but that person actually came and apologized, and she was like, why didn't you remove the comment? Because I was like, I didn't see the need to, you know,
Yeah.
because this is how like, unaffected I was, and this was not always the case. I think that's the same with you. Like maybe if it happened like maybe 5 6 years ago, you would have definitely reacted maybe differently. But I think like this was something that we had to cultivate, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely would post before about the hate comment to like set a
Hmm.
boundary, and
Hmm.
definitely it has worked out in great ways because like
Hmm.
most people who follow me know that will not mess with her the comments.
Oh, definitely.
But
Yeah. And I think like a lot of coaches, I think, talk about their DM policies. I think, we were
mhm.
we were really kind of like faced that at one point. I think it has really died down for a lot of us these days.
Yeah,
But there was one point where there was just like every coach was like kind of like putting the same thing. I was like, what is
yes.
yeah,
Oh, I definitely did that too, and I barely get like these messages about free coaching or hate about
yeah,
charging or whatever.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that just also shows like the importance of boundaries when you're setting it
Mhm.
from a place of like self-love versus defensiveness.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like, for anyone who's like wondering about it, like real quick, like it's not that like, people like, like coaches don't want to help others or something. It's just that, like you would want to be, fair to the clients who are actually paying you for your time, and b, it's also, being like, respectful of like your boundaries, and because you can only give out so much, because at the end of the day
Yeah.
you're a human too, like, you have things to do, and there's only so much you can engage in. What looks like one story to you is like, if imagine if like everyone thought that, like, and everyone started
Yeah.
sending like essays. It like honestly, when you see just chunks, like I have never like, understood this, but like um until like I was in that shoes, when like sometimes you just see a chunk and it just drains your energy.
Yeah. And if you want a professional service, then you have to pay for that.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think that people see coaching as especially manifestation coaching as just like we're giving you a bunch of scenes. There's that kind of coaching present,
Hmm.
but for me personally, with the way like I explain my process
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
personalizing and hearing the person's situations and working with them for 10 weeks straight,
Hmm.
it's it would be unfair to like not get paid. And the coaching that you're getting had a lot of like back end work. So the
Definitely.
website, the contract, the process, the workbook, the meditations, all of
Yep.
that, it has taken a lot of our time. And also we make our own business investments,
Mm.
which can be a lot, of course. So in the sense that helping people, you already are helping people with your content. Like if someone is signing up for you, it's because your free content has kind of like lit a bulb in them. So that's why they're signing up with you
Exactly.
basically.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about helping people, I mean, that way doctors would never get paid, supermarket workers would never get paid, that kind of stuff. It's like everyone deserves to have food on the table, everyone deserves to have clothes, everyone
Mhm.
deserves to have medical treatment, but also like everyone has bills to pay. Forget to talk about
Exactly.
real stuff.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I
And
mean, yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you that. A backlash that I heard before is like, if you can manifest money without working, why aren't you doing that now? So, what's your take on that?
Right. So like one thing is that, yeah, I do believe that okay, you can manifest, without working. You can always like go for lottery and things like that. And I always tell people like you can do that, but this is like a way that I have chosen for myself, in the sense that like I like helping people, like in the sense that even if I don't get any money from this, like I will do this to some capacity. I've always like, like made it very clear to people. Even if I don't like make like a single penny out of this, like I will still make posts. I will still make videos.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the to the same
Mm-hmm.
extent, but I'll still do this. And I've even told this to my folks as well, like, I'm not probably going to be a full-time coach like for the rest of my life. This is something
Mm-hmm.
that I'm enjoying really, like to the core of it. Like, I'm really really enjoying the process and making videos and things like that. And like money is coming in because of that, and so it's fine. But I have never like made this like the only source. Like, money comes to me in other ways as well. And
Yeah.
like it comes from all possible sources as well. So I do like, like experience that. And I also am very open to it, because I always tell like, business owners as well, for example, like, if you think that your business is the only source of money, you're going to put so much pressure on yourself right now. And
Yeah.
it's just going to make it a harder of a journey. And I always tell people like, keep it separate. And I like doing this. This is why I'm
Mm-hmm.
here. It's not because of the money, because I can manifest money, and I do on like, from time to time I do manifest it. But like for me, this is what I like doing. And for me, like, money and this are two separate entities. And that's the thing that I
Yeah.
always tell my clients as well. So that's like kind of like the way I deal with it. And I know like people always like kind of ask that question and whatnot. And sometimes people, another kind of like a way like people would rephrase this question to me is, um you know if I manifest my desires, won't you go out of business? And I'm like, and yeah, believe it or not, this is a question that I've been asked, many times actually. And I'm like, if I go out of business because of that, like, I'm like, great, I'll be happy. Yeah,
That's kind of funny.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I see it as also like, I mean, I know for me, if I quit coaching tomorrow, I'll be fine. So it's
yeah.
not that I need to work. It's that if I'm working towards something that I'm getting paid for my time, not
Mhm.
because I need it, you know. So
Yeah,
if I go and write a blog post for someone, the $20-$40 is not gonna make me like a millionaire, and
right,
I'm probably gonna use it tomorrow. But it's like you're being paid for the effort and the time and the energy,
right,
and
right, right,
how much you condense in like that 15-minute video. You probably condense so much of your years of knowledge and your practices and your work. And the free content is also like very valuable. It's just that it's general, it's not individualized for every individual, and that's why coaching
right.
exists. It's not that you cannot do without a coach.
Okay.
It's very funny what you said about going out of business. I mean, everyone always has new desires and then the next one and then the next one. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like for me, like I'm not even concerned about that. Like that was a question that, kind of people kind of bring it up to you, and I'm like, where did they even get these questions from?
Yeah,
But yeah, yeah, like, but for me, like truly, like, and I was like, okay, if that, it's like asking a doctor, like, won't you go out of business if like everyone is cured? But that's the point, is to keep everyone like, healthy
yeah,
and whatnot. Like, that's the way it is. And like you say, there's always a new desire. And there will always like be folks who want just advice. It doesn't mean that they are in a very bad place or something. They could just be consulting you for something really quick. And again, like what you say,
yeah,
you're just being paid for condensing everything, all the years of knowledge into like a one session, or a couple sessions, if you will. You're being paid because you know what to take and filter for that client in front of you right there. You're being paid
yeah.
for that ability there.
Exactly. Yeah. And I liked what you said about, for business owners, it's like if you're attaching like money to your business, you'll
Hmm.
probably struggle from like one payment to the next, and you'll struggle with like making payments and
Right.
uh fear of losing it and all that. So I like what you said there, and that shows why like we coaches always say like don't attach money to the job or the phone that you want or whatever.
Hmm.
You experience the thing,
Hmm.
that you have a new laptop there, you can log in, you can do your work there, and from there change your relationship with money just in general. And that's like when it does happen, because like even business owners can struggle financially whether or not they charge for coaching. So it goes back again at the end of the day to your belief system.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because for me, like, the last thing, because one thing that, like, folks may not know is that when I started out, like, I had to go without any sort of revenue for like the first like 8 months. And I
Oh my
remember
god, this
like,
thing, sorry.
sorry, yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, please. Yeah.
No, sorry, I was saying, oh my god, this me, go on, go on.
Yeah, because like yeah, I think the first 6 months I went over the revenue, and the other 2 months it was just like double digits. So it's like literally, and I'm grateful for that because that kind of started the momentum. But like if I didn't get like discouraged by it or anything like that, because I knew like, okay, this is what I would do regardless of that. And prior to that I had this page like since 2018, so I've been doing it for a while now. Like I think the from 2018 to like 2020, like the end of 2020, I didn't like wasn't even a coach, but I kept
Hmm.
posting and I just love talking to people. So like that's how I kind of came into it. So it was like, for me it was never about the money exactly, but I was like, okay, if you're going to go more mainstream, if you're going to make this more of your primary, one of your primary gigs, then why not, like what you said, like be compensated for the time and effort that you put in, especially for personalized attention. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off earlier. I just
No, 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 it's
resonated
okay.
with what
Yeah.
you said about when I started my business as well. I started from like zero. Like
Hmm.
I had none in my bank account, and
Hmm.
I did not tell anyone that I was building a business the first 8 months, except two people. So I was
Right.
surprised that you said 8 months as well. So I was like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's like
Yeah,
a golden number for a lot of people.
yeah, it's really interesting. And then eventually I told people because like I didn't want like anyone to help me with the financial aspect. So I started with like the free content as well. And then eventually I was able to like invest in stuff that would help me build my business more and my knowledge more.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's almost like a rite of passage for everyone, because I think that 8 months, like it's almost like a test, um to see how much you're interested in this, because it's not for everyone. That's one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, is that like
Hmm.
this kind of like work, this service based industry is not for everyone. Just like how every career isn't for everyone, this isn't for everyone either. And
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why, again, coming back to that point earlier, like about folks coming in and out of this space, the reason is that because they are not coming in for like the right reasons, in my opinion, because they think like, okay, I want this lifestyle where I can just like make passive income. I don't think service in industry is passive income. Like I feel like, because this is like what you say, like personalized attention in a lot of cases, and you're really walking through people through a lot of their difficulties and everything, and that takes time and dedication. So
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, it's really, I think, like coming into this with the right mindset is important. And that like what you said, that 8 months is that period where you really get to like see if this is for you or not. And there's no right or wrong answer to
Mhm.
that, but you really get to see where you stand with this.
Yeah, and the passive income of like the pre-recorded stuff that comes with also like other work like marketing and
Exactly.
funnels and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So yeah, and definitely I don't think specifically the coaching industry is for everyone, and I think it's like not regulated in the
Hmm.
sense that I know people go have good intentions with like, okay, I want to help everyone manifest, but it's
Hmm.
like about being able to have like the skill of like actually listening to what the person is saying,
Mm.
knowing how to communicate your knowledge to where they are now so that they grasp it from the point that they're standing now, and that you're able to guide them from that point to the point that they want to get to. That's why we say like it's very individualized and personalized. So it definitely is a skill to be able to allow someone to kind of like stretch their mind a little bit and change how they have been perceiving something for many years. Like we're talking about 15 plus years of beliefs. So being able
Right.
to like challenge someone to change their thinking is like the art of coaching.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you. And I think, yeah, and I think a lot of us, like even before we came into this, like we had to work on ourselves as well, to an extent, before we even like had the confidence to embark on this journey. So it's not like,
Yeah.
like folks just like came out of the blue and like started doing this. It's more like there is work involved. There's like what you said earlier as well, like there's investment involved. And I think Steve Jobs mentioned this as well. Like I think when he founded the company after Apple, like he founded a company called Next. Like he was like saying, like I was watching one of his older videos, I think it was just yesterday, where he was like saying, I forgot how much it takes to start a company. Like you need to start like balance sheets, and like you need to come up with like a
Hmm.
logo. And sometimes you have to also go through like rebranding. You have to come up with the art, especially with like social media. Like even like small things like YouTube thumbnails and like the captions, and there's just a
Yes.
lot of work that goes into it. And especially even for the free content, like even though it's free, you are still going to have to put effort into making that pieces of content, and
Yeah.
still be there for your audience, and responding to comments. Like I'm sure you have like dedicated time where you just respond to comments, for example, because that
Hmm.
when you grow up to a scale, like even that becomes a task that you have to allocate time for. It's not something that you can just do on the go, because of how the nature of the questions and whatnot. And I really feel like, yeah, like like it's really not for everyone, but like the ones who are here, the really genuine ones, I feel like like they know for a fact that like this is definitely not something to be underestimated. And it also makes you appreciate the other coaches that much more when you're in this space,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know yeah,
Especially because there's also like the legal side of things, like the
absolutely.
policies on your website, the refund policies, and things like, disclaimers, even in the free content. Like YouTube videos, you always see people put like copyright claims and disclaimers for a
Right.
reason. So there's definitely a lot that gets put into that. But that's why I always say it's important to like do what you love, because even if there's like a lot of work into it, I personally would do it all over again, because I love what I do. I love running a business. I love talking to people. I even studied business in uni because of how much I love business. I
Oh,
love the
okay.
science side of manifesting. Like, so it's me.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, you really have to like love what you're doing, because otherwise, like again, like Steve Jobs would say, like when the going gets tough, it's hard for you to kind of like keep up with it. And I think like
Hmm.
that again, coming back to that 8 months, if it wasn't for like you loving what you did, like whether or not we will never know if any of us would have weathered those 8 months. Because at the end of the day, yeah, like for me, that's almost like the litmus test. Like, okay, even if you don't make anything out of it, would you still go with the same level of like ferocity and like passion as much as you did?
Hmm.
Yeah, and I really
Right.
like what you said. Like, I would do it all over again. Absolutely, like likewise as well, because I love this. And I also love what you said. Like, I love talking to people as well. And I think like if you and I are here right now talking, being in different parts of the world, it's because of this like passion that we have for self development and mindset and manifestation process and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's also about interacting with people from all walks of life.
Hmm. Yeah. I was just asked the other day, like, why are you still doing one-on-one coaching? That's so hard. Like, and there are so many people doing now, like group coaching more than
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
one-on-one. And I'm like, I love one-on-one. I love seeing someone literally transform. I love seeing people go from point A to point C, J, whatever. So you have to actually love it, even though like one-on-one can take like a lot of like time that what you depending on like the your coaching practice. But even if it's just like one off call, you do like
Right,
give your energy in that 60
right.
minutes, and you have to like really listen and not like just like reiterate the same stuff, because you're like personalizing, excuse me, personalizing it to the person.
Right.
And again, that's like why like I'm passionate about seeing people grow. And when you look back, it's like, oh my god, it's like it feels like almost emotional in a way when you see where
Right.
someone was before and where they are now, and it's just beautiful to witness.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I would never kind of like, let go of the one-on-one offers that I have, because, I love interacting with people on a, like a, one-to-one. And also like what you said, like seeing the progress, like, how they first come, and like, just seeing their progress down the line. And even if it's like months after they coached with you, like I've had clients like who would say like, hey, I'm getting married. I just want to let you know because you helped me
Oh,
through a certain part of the phase and whatnot. And it just makes me so happy. Or like some will come and tell me, hey, I got the job that we used to work on, and like it's finally a done deal. And that used to happen a lot, and I'm like, this is why I do what I do. And
yeah.
it's, yeah, and that makes it like so much more like rewarding for me. And yeah, I mean, sure, it's a business, but these are the parts that's really rewarding, like putting things out there, creating content. And it's you should enjoy the everything. It's not just about like growing your business in terms of revenue wise. That's more of the
Hmm.
byproduct of it, when you just enjoy everything else that comes along with it.
Yes. Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, because like one thing, like I just don't want it to, like I think some folks have this like misconception where it's like
Mm,
they think that it's all about like traveling around the world and like coaching at the site and whatnot, but it's more about like you creating a lifestyle around this and integrating it, and like the
hmm.
lifestyle that you live is a result of that. It's not like something that you aim for, it's more like a byproduct of it.
Exactly, exactly. And like once you like built that foundation, it's like easy to build on it. Because I feel like the most difficult part of the process for most people is like when they're getting started with like really like building that solid foundation and then building on it, the secondary stuff, which is like the physical desires. And once you like get that stuff in, like you can't go back to what you already integrated. That's something my coach told me last year when I was going through something difficult. Like when people go through a difficult experience, they're like, "Oh, I took 10 steps back." Not necessarily. It's if you already shifted something in your subconscious, then you've already shifted it. It's just maybe you're relearning something or you're refining your understanding of that thing. You're actually breaking a deeper layer of this, and so you can get there faster. So I just want to say that, like, while it can look sometimes that you're taking 10 steps back, you're actually the 10 steps back are actually getting you 10 steps forward. And yeah, that's at least my experience. When things were the hardest, it was like all of my beliefs at the surface, which is great because now I see them all and I can change them all at once.
Right, right, right. Like it's like that saying when they say that, like, the arrow is only pulled back to go forward. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that, it's when you're going through something like really some sort of a turbulent period or something very challenging. That's when, the greatest amount of change happens, and you just grow from it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I really feel like when you do go, but you'll never be the same in a good way. And you look
Yes,
back at it like with so much gratitude eventually down the line. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Definitely agreed.
Yeah. So yeah, like I think where are you headed towards right now? So what are your goals? Like where what's your like goals with like the manifestation journey, and like in terms of what do you want to do for the community, or just even in your own life, like where are you headed towards right now?
I'm definitely like rebranding things in my business, and
Hmm.
I've
Hmm.
kind of been recently with like the way my content is,
Hmm.
and there are certain things that I don't want to like coach in anymore, or I don't want to encourage people to sign up for anymore. I don't know if I should share it here right now. Um, and I'm just looking more so to kind of like refine my message so that I'm speaking to people who resonate with
Mm.
with this level of content, if that makes sense. So it's
Right.
getting like even closer to my ideal clients. Like my clientele has shifted completely in the past years and this year even more.
Right.
And part of the reasons why I, talk to you about, wanting to talk about the coaching industry and ethnicity and all that is because I also want to give more voice to those who feel like they're left out or that they
Mm.
can't speak to coaches because they'll be like disregarded regarding like their cultures and their fears and things like that,
Right.
and
Right. Right.
encourage them to that this is a safe space. Not that there isn't room for other ethnicities like white people. There's always room for that, but there will also be room for those who feel kind of ostracized in the sense.
Mm.
Also been making like a lot of shifts with mental health and physical health since last year, but just taking even at a higher level. And that goes with like every area of my life. So I'm pretty much just like transforming things more. And I have like new goals related to business, ways I want to like expand it that I cannot share now. But some ideas, like I wrote down like 10 ideas recently. And I was like,
Awesome. Awesome.
okay,
Awesome.
yeah, we're gonna do this. And yeah, just like more travel and reunions and yeah, that stuff.
Okay, okay,
Uh,
great. Yeah, because yeah, I've definitely like noticed that shift in terms of like, like what you said, like refinement. I've definitely noticed that for sure. And I'm really excited to see like, the new content and all the things that are going to come up in your life. And I definitely wish you the best of luck as well. um yeah, like I think like you're one of the like coaches that I've always looked up to in a way. And I really feel like you are very genuine at what you do. Um and I think like that authenticity like is very rare in this community at one point. And I think like one of the reasons why I really resonated with you was because of that, like you were very genuine, and you weren't like shy to express your views, but albeit in like a respectful way as well. You were respectful of your boundaries and everything. And I think it definitely encouraged like for just coaches to be like also be very like stern with their boundaries as well. I
Yeah.
definitely think like I'm not sure if you noticed it, but like I to me at least, like I felt at that point when the whole boundary thing was an issue, like you were definitely like to me at the forefront of it for some reason. I don't know why.
Thank you.
So I because I don't know why, but I remember there were a few other coaches, but like I remember like you definitely like kind of stood out to me at one point. So I think like it also kind of like it really also made inspired me in a way as well. So I just had to tell you that because I don't think I've ever shared that with you before. But it's been a while since like I said, it's been a few years at this point. But you have been like, I really love your content. And it really like hits the nail for a lot of people for sure. And like whatever that you're doing, and you even like wearing the headscarf and everything, I think like it really shows like, okay, you're not afraid to express yourself, and you're not afraid to really like put yourself out there in your most genuine form possible. And I think like it has only like inspired more people to come out in their own authentic way as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. That's very kind of you. I didn't know that. Thank you. I've also like struggled at the very beginning with like practicing what I preach, and I definitely
Right.
was like also dealing with imposter syndrome, and that's why I'm
Hmm.
also moving towards this direction of like more authenticity, more putting myself out there. And there can be fear sometimes present, so it's not that, I'm never afraid of like posting about certain things, but I'm kind of the person who's like, okay, I'm scared, but I'll do it anyway. And that's how like I generally approach my desires.
Oh
If it
yeah,
falls
absolutely.
apart, well,
Yeah.
it falls apart,
Yeah.
and I get it. So who cares?
Right. Right. And I mean, I'm very similar to that as well. But what's your rationale behind doing that? Like, okay, if you know that there's a potential quote unquote risk, what makes you take the leap of faith?
Because for me, it's like, when people say, okay, how do you know this thing is going to be good? I'm like, how do you know that the job you apply to is going to be good? It's like, you have the desire right now. If you follow
Mhm.
it, you will be guided to this path and even beyond that. So there's always a potential risk. There's even a potential risk of when you where you stay where you are. So like when we're
Mhm.
talking about safety, if we're being realistic, you don't know what's happening tomorrow, today, the day after. So
Mhm.
you're never like 100% safe. You can just create as much safety as possible and feel great about your life now and when you have what you want. So go after the thing that you want, even if it scares you. Because like if you're gonna allow fear to take over, then you're going to stay where you are now. And even where you are now is also unsafe. So make a choice in your life. I see it
Right,
that way.
exactly. Yeah. Like I think like like what you said, like I think really at the end of the day, safety is an illusion. Like what you said, like you
Mhm.
never know what's going to happen tomorrow. It's the illusion of like, okay, that things are going to stay the way they are, and therefore you feel safe. And like because I kind of deviated from the path of like a traditional kind of education, and
Mhm.
that kind of like opened me up. And I really for a lot of long period, like I felt like really unsafe. And there will always be those like phases for me, like, or that those times when I'm like, okay, am I making the right choice and everything. And I really had to assure myself otherwise, and really open myself up to that's when like the law really helped me. Like that's when Neville's teachings really helps, when you know, okay, what you want, but you also feel like society's views are like also deeming it unsafe and whatnot. That's when your faith is really tested. But like again, I
Mhm.
think like talking about like what we spoke about earlier, it's these types of times that really strengthens you, and you come out of it like with so much more clarity.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hope, yeah, I hope I'm making sense. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to say, like, I dealt with grief recently, and this isn't my first time dealing with it, but every time I do, as I'm sitting down and thinking about things, I'm like, damn, we waste so much time worrying about how I'm gonna look in this outfit, what this person's gonna say.
Mm,
Let me play hard to get, and you can be already living the life that you want and not waste so much time because like I don't want this to turn gloomy, but we all know like we're not on earth forever, but it's so
right,
might as well just like make the most out of it and move past the fear because I know when I'm 80, 90, whatever, I want to look back and see that I did work towards my goals whether or not I achieved them. I did make the most out of my life versus, oh, when I was 20 I didn't go out because I didn't like how I looked in the outfit and thought everyone would think I look fat, so it's like
right.
I know it doesn't always feel like an easy journey and it can feel easier said than done, but now what? That's what I think every time. Like, now what? We get it. Now what? What you gonna do about it? So it's just like my invitation to do something today different. Get out of that comfort zone.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, I think like funny you said that the 80 or 90 because like I always tell people as well, when you're like 80 or 90 on your deathbed, like you don't want to look back at life and think like, oh, I wish I did all those things. And I think like something that we didn't really touch on, but I'm really interested to know your views, is like because we are coming from an ethnic background, maybe this line of career wasn't even encouraged to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we they our folks had definitely had like other plans for us, right? And and to kind of like go from that to here, it definitely required a leap of faith, but clearly like it's working out. And I think like going after the things that you do want, it always does work out in the end. You just have to
Mm-hmm.
take that leap of faith. And like it's like I think Jim Rohn is one who said it, like it's all risky at the end of the day. So like yeah, like what you said as well, like I think you really summed it up perfectly. Like we are all going to leave this earth someday, and so live a life that's worth like remembering for us, not for others. Like it's not about leaving a quote unquote legacy or anything like that, but it's more for me, it's like you collecting experiences and enjoying life, and realizing in the process that okay, you are God incarnate as well. And yeah, that's about it. Like that's the way I see it.
Yeah, and people worry about time. Like, I promise, time passes so quickly. Like, we're 3 years into the new decade, 3.5 years into the new decade already. Like, we're
Yep.
5 months into 2023, almost 6 months. So
Almost, yeah.
time is just passing. So go and get your stuff without worrying about getting it now. You will. Time will pass, even if you're gonna get it this week or next month. That time will pass anyway. So might as well in the in between moment feel awesome about
Hmm.
yourself, treat yourself right, take yourself out on a date, uh, connect with these people that you care about, go out, whatever. Fill your life with what you want to do more of, and again, give yourself what you want from others. Because even if like you can only give yourself 70%, because there are like certain things that it feels different when you get it from someone else, but
Right.
you're still not at a zero. Even if you're like a 70% is a big jump, so you're just gonna fill the 30% left.
Right.
So don't wait for the desire to come through, even if it's tomorrow.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Like yeah, sure, it might come tomorrow, but why waste, the remaining time that you have today? Because this time is
Hmm.
never going to come back to you. Like I always tell people, you're never going to be this young again, no matter what age you are,
Sorry.
you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
So and it's really important to enjoy this time as much as possible, especially, if you are manifesting and if you're living in the end, that's all the more reason for you to enjoy this time as well, because you don't just want to experience your end goals, but you also want to make the journey a pleasurable one as well towards that. You don't just want to go from manifestation to manifestation with like stress and heartaches and that kind of way. We also want to
Yeah.
like make the roads to our desires, like made as though they are made out of rainbows. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely agreed.
Yeah. So is there any like closing messages or anything that you would like to say like
Um,
to the audience or anything like that? Yeah.
mm, let me think. Mm, what anything comes to mind now? I feel like I just said a lot in the last bit. Do the thing that scares you the most. I
Hmm.
think that's what's coming up for me now. Like, if, since we're talking about fear, there's probably one thing you've been wanting to do, feeling drawn to do, but you were scared to do it, and
Hmm.
that nudge could be the bridge of incidents.
Right.
It's like listen to the nudge. I don't mean the fear and the anxiety. I mean the actual nudge that feels right. That yeah, it's just I feel drawn to do this thing. Do this thing, even if it seems scary, even
Mm.
if things seem to fall apart in the beginning. Eventually, they transpire and fall into place. So move through it, and I mean, even if things go slightly wrong, that thing doesn't last forever. You get what you want in the end.
I
So
love that. Yeah.
that's the message.
No, I really love that. That was a beautiful message. And yeah, how can folks reach you? Like, if folks are, like unfamiliar with your work and what do you do? Like, what are the platforms? And I'll leave it in the links in the description as well. But yeah, I just wanted, them to know it from you as well. Yeah.
Sure. So you can reach out to me on Instagram at rosanna.manifests_LLC or email me at coachingwithrose@gmail.com. Those are like the main communication platforms. I have other platforms such as TikTok and Facebook, but I mostly use Instagram and my email, so it would be best to reach me out through those. And thank you, by the way, for having me here.
Oh, awesome! No, it's been a pleasure, and thank you for like reaching out to like set this up as well. And it's been a pleasure, honestly, because yeah, like I said, like I've always had like tremendous respect for you and the work that you have done, and I think like it's like finally it was like a huge pleasure for me to have you here and to even talk to you about all these things, because I think like even though the things that we coach on are like slightly different and whatnot, but at the end of the day, like we are in the same space and we are in the same community, at least. And I think just like making friends and interacting also gives you like perspectives to think about and whatnot. So it was an absolute pleasure to have you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So guys, we have come to this end of this video. If this video resonated with you, be sure to drop a like and a comment down below. Turn on your bell notification so that you guys will know when I upload a new video every single week. And as always, guys, stay safe and happy manifesting. Peace.